It is 10:15 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It's the 10th day of June, 2026. This is episode 1338 of Bitcoin, and I am feeling way better. Oh my God. I started feeling much better a couple of hours after yesterday's show. I don't know, man. It's like it kind of went away. There's a little bit of residual bullshit, but other than that, I feel way better today, so hopefully it'll be a much more energetic show, and I've got one for you. It seems that the DOJ made a threat to President Trump about the Ross Ulbricht pardon. I can't imagine what that's about. We're going to start the day out that way, but Fold sold. Yes, they did. They sold some Bitcoin. They actually sold quite a bit of Bitcoin. I'll tell you about it. And Botanix shutting down. Tell you why. I swear to God I will. Then inflation numbers come out today, and I'm going to do that during the right before we start running the numbers so that we can get some context of what the hell's going on. And then SpaceX IPO. We're going to talk about it. It's causing freaking problems, and it's not just for Bitcoin. It's like a bull in a china shop. I mean, I don't think Elon Musk realizes the damage that he's doing in the short term, and I do kind of believe it's short term. Mike, our friend Michael Saylor, he's in a debate. Apparently, people are a little pissed off about his latest share sale. People are saying it's dilutive. Saylor saying it's not. He said, she said, we'll do it. I promise. And then we're going to end up in prediction markets. We got a couple of things, one from Kalshi and one from the CFTC themselves. But first, let's talk about this whole Trump thing. Dan Loeb reveals DOJ threat to Trump over Ross Ulbricht commutation in the final hours of his first term. Yeah, Trump number one, this threat was made. And thank God it's not Micah Zimmerman writing this one for Bitcoin Magazine. It's Juan Galt. There's actually somebody else writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Hedge fund manager Dan Loeb has publicly claimed that the Department of Justice threatened President Donald Trump in the final hours of Trump's first term in January of 2021, warning it would go after him if he commuted the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, creator of the Bitcoin-powered Silk Road Marketplace. After the reported threat, Trump withdrew the commutation, forcing Ulbricht to serve 4 additional years in prison before receiving a full pardon in January 2025, which was during Trump's second term. Loeb, founder and CEO of Third Point LLC, made the revelations on the All In podcast while discussing his role in criminal justice reform and Ulbricht's clemency efforts. Quote, "On the last day of Trump's 45th term, we were certain that he was going to get out," Loeb stated. And the Justice Department, for whatever reason, said, "If you commute his sentence, we're going to go after you," to the president. So he, as I understood, he withdrew the commutation, end quote. This account is the first public report of such a direct threat from the DOJ during the closing days of Trump's first presidency. It has not been independently corroborated by other sources to date, and no specific DOJ official has been named as delivering the warning. The claim rests on Loeb's recollection, likely conveyed through the advocacy chain that included crypto figures like Reva Tez, Charlie Kirk, and then White House counsel David Warrington. Jeffrey A. Rosen served as acting attorney general after William Barr's departure in late December 2020. Richard Donahue was acting deputy attorney general. The Office of the Pardon Attorney, a DOJ unit that reviews clemency petitions and issues recommendations, operated under their oversight. Presidents, including Trump, frequently bypassed standard OPA processes for politically sensitive cases. The alleged threat appears to have gone well beyond typical DOJ advisory input on issues such as sentence proportionality, victim impact, or enforcement priorities. Ulbricht had been serving a double life sentence plus 40 years following his 2015 conviction on charges including operating a continuing criminal enterprise, narcotics distribution via the internet, money laundering, and hacking. Contrary to popular belief and widely publicized insinuations by the mainstream media, Ulbricht was never prosecuted on any charges related to murder for hire. Silk Road, which relied primarily on Bitcoin for transactions, represented one of the earliest large-scale experiments in the use of an alternative currency to the dollar, making the case and its history foundational to the Bitcoin community. A warning framed as potential retaliation against the president himself would constitute an extraordinary escalation in tensions between the executive branch and the Justice Department over clemency authority. Such pushback likely stemmed from institutional concerns about appearing soft on major drug trafficking and money laundering cases tied to the early Bitcoin economy. The reported DOJ intervention in the final days of Trump's first term cost Ulbricht 4 more years. As Loeb recounted, Charlie Kirk later took the lead on the clemency effort. Quote, "This was his only ask of the president," Loeb said, referring to Kirk. Kirk's advocacy helped turn Ulbricht's release into Trump's primary promise to libertarians and the crypto community during the 2024 campaign. Trump delivered on that promise with a full and unconditional pardon early in his second term. Ironically, the delay strengthened the Free Ross movement. What began as advocacy for clemency in a case viewed by many in Bitcoin circles as emblematic of government overreach evolved into a potent political force. The campaign highlighted issues of disproportionate sentencing, self-custody, privacy tools, and resistance to broadly unpopular and ineffective war on drugs, core themes in Bitcoin's ethos of financial sovereignty and of high importance to the libertarian voting bloc. That momentum and Trump's promise to pardon Ulbricht are widely considered to have earned Trump the libertarian and crypto vote in 2024. Loeb framed his involvement in Ulbricht's case as part of broader criminal justice reform, linking it to his broader philanthropy efforts on education and concerns over opportunity and income inequality. He highlighted 3 categories for clemency: the wrongly convicted, the rehabilitated, and those with disproportionately harsh sentences. Ulbricht, who acknowledged wrongdoing on Silk Road while denying murder for hire allegations, fit the latter category in Loeb's assessment. The episode highlights ongoing tensions between law enforcement, Bitcoin innovation, and the libertarian culture that makes up a large part of the U.S. public. Silk Road, one of the earliest Bitcoin marketplaces, remains a reference point in debates over decentralization, privacy, and regulatory overreach. Similar cases continue to draw attention in the Bitcoin community, including Bitcoin activist Ian Freeman, the developers of the Samurai Wallet privacy tool, and Roman Storm of Tornado Cash, all facing charges viewed by many as attacks on libertarian leaders, the freedom of commerce, self-custody, and financial privacy tool usage. Now, that's the end of the article. What does it mean to have a Department of Justice threaten a sitting president at the end of his term over a pardon? Of course, we have to assume, if we were going to ask that question as a, to seek a legitimate answer, we'd have to ask that question in the assumption that they really did threaten, and we don't know. That's the thing about most of the bullshit that we hear coming out of news agencies, no matter, or mouthpieces or spokespeople or whatever. Were you there? Did you hear them say that for yourself? Not heard it through somebody else, not read it in a newspaper. Like you have to have been there. It's like when I was a kid, never once would I have ever questioned, did we land on the moon? Now, I'm not somebody who says that we didn't. But when I actually start looking at it, I wasn't there. I wasn't at the launch pad. I wasn't on in the spaceship. I didn't set foot on the moon myself. I have to trust what the media and government officials and other institutions have told me what happened. And now, as I am much older, I don't trust any of these people. I can't trust any of these people. So I wonder the efficacy of this supposed threat. And I'm not saying it didn't happen, but what would be gained? What would have been gained for the Department of Justice to tell a sitting president, if you commute the sentence of this one guy, we're coming after you when you're out of office? I mean, WTF is even that? It kind of doesn't make sense. So I'm taking the whole thing with a grain of salt, but guess who's not going to take it with a grain of salt? Most of the people that listens to this story. Because we don't think anymore. It's like we've lost the capacity to say, wait a minute, hold on. Why? What's to be gained? I literally cannot see any gain whatsoever. Now, that Justice Department was very much different than this Justice Department. If the reason was they hated Trump so much, and they kind of did, that they would use any reason whatsoever, then couldn't they have picked one of the other people that he was thinking about pardoning at the time, or actually did pardon? Because if you look at the pardons back in that era of Trump's first presidency, you could have picked anyone. You could have literally picked anyone to say, if you commute this person's sentence, we're coming after you. Why this guy? Why Ross Ulbricht? Something's not sitting right with me. I don't know what it is. I wish I did. If I had a team of investigators on my side, I might be able to get that. But all I can do right now is to say, wait a minute, here's this piece of information that somebody just dropped. Why don't we actually take a step back away from it, walk around it, and look at it before we start saying, oh my God, this actually happened? Just saying. Now, one thing we're pretty sure did actually happen, because SEC filings and whatnot, is that Fold Holdings has dumped $45 million in Bitcoin specifically to wipe out debt, and their stock briefly pumps over 130%. And this is Micah Zimmerman for Bitcoin Magazine. Fold Holdings Incorporated, the Bitcoin financial services company behind a suite of consumer reward products, announced a series of capital transactions designed to eliminate secured debt, strengthen its balance sheet, and fund the next phase of its growth strategy. The company monetized approximately $45 million of Bitcoin at an average price of around $71,000 per coin. They used $20 million of those proceeds to retire Bitcoin collateralized debt, and then directed the remaining $25 million toward growth initiatives across its consumer and enterprise platforms. The move leaves Fold debt-free on the secured side while preserving a Bitcoin treasury of approximately 1,500 Bitcoin worth roughly $95 million at current prices. Fold's stock ripped to $1.50 in early trading. That's up over 130% on the day. Since then, the stock has fallen to under $1, up only 30% on the day. Wow. That's a hell of a vol right there. The headline transaction is tied to a broader debt restructuring. Fold repaid approximately $66.3 million in convertible notes, a position it originally built in March of 2025 when the company added 475 Bitcoin to its treasury through those same instruments. Retiring the debt released 521 Bitcoin that had been locked up as collateral, giving management more flexibility over the company's Bitcoin holdings moving forward. Quote, "We've reduced financing risk, strengthened our balance sheet, and ensured that short-term market volatility cannot stand in the way of executing our roadmap," said Will Reeves, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. "As we approach several product launches, we believe Fold is entering one of the most important growth periods in the company's history." End quote. Fold's flagship product is its Bitcoin Rewards credit card, and it sits at the center of management's growth thesis. The elimination of debt removes monthly cash interest payments from the expense base, and in Reeves' framing, gives the company the financing flexibility to support a large cardholder base and pursue funding relationships that participate in the card's program's economics as it scales. The company also has a $45 million revolving credit facility backed by Bitcoin collateral and a $250 million equity purchase facility aimed at future Bitcoin accumulation, instruments that reflect the corporate treasury's playbook Fold is committed to since going public February 19th, 2025 through a SPAC. The restructuring arrives against a backdrop of genuine business momentum. Fold's fiscal year 2025 revenue reached $31.8 million. That's a 34% increase year over year, driven by transaction volume of nearly $960 million for the period. Since launching in 2019, the company has processed more than $2 billion in total transactions and distributed over $45 million in Bitcoin rewards to users. The combination of a debt-free balance sheet, a functional revenue engine, and a treasury that retains exposure to Bitcoin appreciation gives Fold a capital structure that management argues is designed for the current environment, one where Bitcoin native financial products are gaining traction with both consumers and institutional financing partners. Quote, "Over the past year, we've built one of the strongest product roadmaps in our history," Reeves said. "We've increased liquidity and lowered debt to ensure we have the resources and flexibility to execute our plans during this pivotal moment for Fold," end quote. And end of article. Okay. Now, you might be thinking that I'm going to get all over Will Reeves and Fold for selling their Bitcoin. Actually, I'm not. Because now, again, I'm going to make an assumption that all this can be backed up by SEC filings like K8s and all this kind of shit. That they really did sell, and their balance sheet is public because they are a public company. They're on the stock exchange, so they have to release their financials. If they're not lying about the numbers, this is actually a pretty good move for Fold. I mean, debt-free balance sheet. They still have a bunch of Bitcoin in reserve. They've got $25 million in ready cash to go into a growth phase, which is what happens to companies when we go into a Bitcoin bear market. People build. It's like literally, well, there ain't nothing else to be excited about, so we might as well build. Happens every single bear market. And it's almost a trope, definitely a meme, but bear markets are where you build. And we're in a bear market. I wish we weren't, but we are. That's just the way it is. But this brings me to the Botanix story. Now, you may not remember the name Botanix. I've brought it to you before. Let's get into it. It's Christina Combin writing for Cointelegraph. Botanix to shut down after 4 years, citing weak demand for Bitcoin DeFi. That's the catch right there, is we're talking about DeFi. I always called bullshit on Bitcoin doesn't need DeFi. In fact, the way DeFi is structured right now, nobody needs DeFi because nobody understands decentralized finance, or at least not in this format. And we certainly didn't need it on Bitcoin. It looks like maybe the masses of people were like, I don't need this shit. I just need Bitcoin. Anyway, Botanix, which is a Bitcoin scaling network that set out to bring real utility to Bitcoin without token incentives, is winding down after 4 years in operation. In a Tuesday post on X, Botanix told users to withdraw all their Bitcoin and other assets by July the 9th, after which remaining assets will be swept and become unrecoverable. The decision comes despite integrations with major crypto infrastructure providers, including Chainlink, Fireblocks, and Galaxy, and the launch of a consumer-facing Bitcoin neobank application. God, jeez. Hey, get our app. Get some DeFi on Bitcoin with Botanix. No. Botanix Spider Chain architecture combines an Ethereum virtual machine compatible chain with proof-of-stake style consensus. That structure allowed it to offer Ethereum-like programmability for Bitcoin while relying on a set of validators and a dynamic federation rather than purely on Bitcoin's own consensus for security and settlement. In its shutdown notice, the team said the technology and products worked but failed to achieve sustainable product market fit for economics. Botanix said most users still treat Bitcoin primarily as a reserve asset and yield vehicle rather than something they want to use frequently in on-chain applications, and that existing demand for Bitcoin-backed decentralized finance is largely being met by wrapped BTC on Ethereum. The team also cited a broader concentration of attention and trading volumes on large exchanges, trading platforms, and traditional financial intermediaries, which left infrastructure-heavy networks like Botanix just struggling to generate enough fee revenue to cover their costs. Botanix has warned that anyone who does not remove their Bitcoin and other assets by July the 9th will lose access, highlighting the practical risks for retail users when experimental DeFi platforms are wound down. The shutdown comes as other projects seek to extend Bitcoin's programmability, including Stacks and Rootstock, which operate independent blockchains linked to Bitcoin, and newer efforts such as Citria that use different mixers of Bitcoin, different mixes of Bitcoin anchoring, proof-of-stake style design, and token incentives. Citria co-founder and chief executive Orkun Mahir Klik, I cannot pronounce that name. It does. Kilic? K-I-L-I-C? Kilic, I guess. Told Cointelegraph's Botanix experience is less an indictment of Bitcoin's DeFi than of, quote, a cloning first approach, end quote, that largely replicated existing EVM protocols without offering long-term Bitcoin holders a distinct value proposition. You know what this is? That's not really, there's only a couple of paragraphs left in the article and it goes more into Citria. I don't give a shit. Here's the thing. DeFi right now is just, it's the risk versus reward is not there. It's just not. And most of it is just a scam. Even if the people that are producing the chains and infrastructure and networks around it don't think it's a scam or don't mean it to be a scam and the quote unquote their heart's in the right place and all that shit, it's all bullshit. It was bullshit the minute Sushi Swap was born. And that was like what, the summer of 2020 or 2021, or I can't remember. I don't care. I thought it was stupid then, and I still think it's dumb. Does that mean that decentralized finance won't find a real product market fit in the financial landscape of the world? Absolutely freaking not. It will when people figure out what they're going to do with it. You know, when people are going, wait a minute, there's actually something here that I could really use in decentralized finance, and that is not here yet. They keep telling us, yeah, well, of course, because we have this, we have this, and we have this. And every single explanation that I've heard, there's something in my gut that says, this doesn't make sense. Why would you do this when you can just go over here and do this other thing that already exists, that already has all this structure behind it? with companies presenting anywhere between 20 to 100 years of functionality without, winding down. Just, until somebody figures that shit out, stay as far as possible away from DeFi, whether it's Bitcoin based or other. Make some cookies. No, seriously, just make some cookies. And when you do, use Kid Warp's chocolate vanilla paste. Oh, I got to view the product details of this one. Circle P is open for business, and Kid Warp's Vanilla Shop is one of my Circle P vendors. Circle P is where I bring plebs just like you with goods and services to plebs just like you who want to buy goods and services from other plebs using Bitcoin. Because if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. And here we have chocolate vanilla paste. Bitcoin beans, cacao nibs, and organic Madagascar vanilla beans blended together in perfection for a special treat. See, this is what I freaking love about the Circle P, because Bitcoin beans is also a Circle P vendor. And these, all my vendors, and it's not, I didn't cause it to happen. It was going to happen whether the Circle P existed or not. But Bitcoin vendors are hooking up with other Bitcoin vendors, and they're leveraging each other's expertise to build new products. I've never heard of chocolate vanilla paste ever before. Now, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just that I've used vanilla paste before, and you use it like exactly the same way in exactly the same proportions as you would use vanilla extract. Instead of a liquid, it's an actual paste. It's got the consistency of like a kind of a looser blend of peanut butter, let's say. But you just use it in whatever you were going to use vanilla extract for. Just use vanilla paste. This stuff, I have not tried it myself. I know, my bad, but I've got to present the plebs to you. That's the job of the Circle P. And everybody that I've talked to that have tried Kid Warp's vanilla paste, just the base paste, has said it's freaking fantastic. And the way that Kid Warp goes around producing this stuff, it is very clear to me that he does it with love, attention, not just to the product, but to the people that he intends to sell the product to. And again, he sells it in Bitcoin. 40,450 sats is going to get you a jar of chocolate vanilla paste. It doesn't say what size it is, so it's one of the very, very small ones. So I'm thinking 2 ounces, maybe 4 ounces. It's enough. It's enough. He's got 8 in stock. And if you need to figure out where to go buy it, he has a takemysats.com vendor suite. Okay, that's just a website you go to. That URL is directly in my show notes for this show. He's in there. All right, you just click on the link. It'll take you right to this shop, and you can get chocolate vanilla paste from a fellow pleb who deals in Bitcoin. And you know he does because he's taking Bitcoin for this product. Oh, and I just saw it's only available in 4-ounce sizes. So 40,532 sats now, because I guess he's got a calculator on his website that is connected to the Bitcoin price and is live. But they are 4-ounce sizes. He's got 8 left. Kids Warp Vanilla Shop is bringing quality homemade bit paste from our kitchen to yours. We source premium quality organic Madagascar vanilla beans and other vanilla beans from different countries from all over the world to show off the different flavors of vanilla. We use old-time traditional vanilla extraction processes and not modern quick brew methods. No corners are cut in our small batch production. They're chopped by hand and left to macerate for a minimum of 2 months in choice alcoholic spirits before we blend them to perfection to make premium quality bit paste. Go get your 4-ounce jar of chocolate vanilla bit paste, now for 40,530 sats. Reminds me of the old joke. I won't get into it. That's chocolate vanilla paste from Kid Warp's Vanilla Shop. Look for the URL in the show notes. Bitcoin rises despite U.S. inflation hitting a 3-year high. The majority of this story is more about Bitcoin price action, which I kind of don't like doing. But it also gives the numbers of the inflation numbers that came out this morning. Cointelegraph. It's written by Yashu Gola. Let's get into at least that part of the numbers before we run the numbers. Bitcoin erased its intraday losses and rose by around 2.5% to 62,410 immediately after the United States inflation report, even as the headline consumer price index hit its highest level in more than 3 years. Wow. The US CPI, Consumer Price Index, rose 4.2% year over year in May. On a monthly basis, headline inflation increased 0.5%, while core inflation, which excludes food and energy, rose 2.9% annually and 0.2% month over month. The headline jump came largely from higher energy and gasoline prices, as renewed Middle East tensions, of course, lifted oil prices and reignited inflation concerns. At first glance, the report looked bearish for Bitcoin. Higher inflation usually reduces the odds of Federal Reserve rate cuts, keeps Treasury yields elevated, and tightens financial conditions. That typically pressures risk assets, including Bitcoin. But Bitcoin rallied because the inflation print did not come in worse than feared. Economists had already expected headline CPI to hit 4.2%. The actual number matched that forecast, removing the risk of a hotter surprise. Traders did not see the report as strong enough to force the Fed into a tougher stance, giving them room to buy risk assets again. And that gave Bitcoin a chance to bounce from long-term support zones. So that's all that we need from this particular news story, because then they just launch into technical analysis. And I'm here to tell you, technical analysis, I don't know. It can be helpful for some, but I wouldn't trade around it. Not unless that's your full-time job. In many cases, I still find it rather voodoo. But in other cases, especially since I don't trade, then that means that I'd never because I'll draw lines on charts. Hell, it's kind of fun, man. And sometimes, actually more often than not, the lines that I draw on charts actually project out price action. Except in the case of West Texas Intermediate Oil, I basically drew a compression zone a couple of weeks ago, and the price of oil has fallen well outside that. But about 70% of the time, my weak ass technical analysis is actually kind of spot on. But I'm never going to tell you about it because I don't want anybody listening to me like I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just like you, man. I'm muddling through as best I can. Actually, 90% of what I now know about economics should have been taught to me in high school. Never once in high school economics was a treasury bond even mentioned, much less ramifications of said instrument. It's all bullshit. Let's run the numbers. CNBC, futures and commodities, and I guess shit's breaking loose in the Middle East. I can kind of tell. Murban crude is up over a point to 89.16 a barrel. Brent North Sea is up over 3 points to 94.37, and West Texas Intermediate making the most gain, 3.8% to the upside, bringing it up to $91.6 a barrel. Natural gas up 2.2% to $3.20 per thousand cubic feet, and gasoline up 3.25 to $3.12 a gallon. Metals are basically getting launched, except for palladium, which is up 2/3 of a point. Gold is down, 3.6. Somebody check on Peter Schiff. It's down to 41.27 and 9 dimes. Platinum is down 2%, and silver is down almost 1% to 64.62 an ounce. Copper is down 1 1/3 itself. Ag is mostly in the green today. Biggest winner is coffee, 1.5% to the upside. Biggest loser is chocolate, 2.1% to the downside. Live cattle up a point. Lean hogs also up a point. Feeder cattle up 1/3. Indices getting kind of hammered this morning. S&P is down 1 1/4. NASDAQ is down 1 2/3. The Dow is down 1.5%, and the S&P Mini down 1 full percentage point. And then there's Bitcoin, $61,870. That's a $1.24 trillion market cap, and we can now purchase 15.1 ounces of our favorite shiny metal rock with our 1 Bitcoin, of which there are 20,040,807.4 of. Average fees per block are nominal, 0.02 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. It's about 48 blocks carrying 111,000 unconfirmed transactions. Right now, high priority costs for that transaction, 5 sats per VByte. Low priority will get you in at 2. 862 exahashes per second is the hash rate on the Bitcoin network. So many mining machines have been taken offline, which is exactly what I expected. I just expected it to happen a lot longer ago. So now, the fact that it didn't happen a long time, and when I mean a long time ago, I mean like, I don't know, a couple of months after October the 10th is sort of what I was thinking. And then we dropped some more after that, and I was kind of thinking, well, at one point or another, hash rate's going to come offline, and it just kept going up. We kept being around the zettahash territory. And now we finally see the backlash. We finally see the miner capitulation. No, it does not lead to a mining death spiral. I'm surprised that I have not seen headlines that are screaming about Bitcoin's imminent demise because of Bitcoin's mining death spiral, which is just over the horizon. Yeah, you know why I don't believe that? Because they've used it so many times before. They have literally just peppered us for years. Every single time a bear market happens, we start getting inundated with the mining death spiral talk. It surprises me that it's not all over the place right now. I don't care. 862 exahashes per second is completely fine for security of the Bitcoin network. Reminder, go to bitcoinandshow.com, bitcoinandshow.com. Just, help a brother out, get me some website traffic, helps with search engine optimization. That helps with searching on stuff like Google and artificial intelligence searches and stuff like that. If I can get some traction on it, it'll help actually drive the show. Even if you just click on it. Yeah, just every once in a while, just click on it, man. But if you want to dig deeper, I've got the entire Cathedral project is in there and all the associated episodes with that one. Plus, most of the time, not every single day, but most of the time, I will build an entire post around like an episode like today's, maybe, if it's if it's important enough. And basically, I just like kind of condense most of the main parts of the show into a nice tight read with a link directly to that episode over on Fountain. That's normally what I do. So if you don't have, for whatever reason, you just want to see what I'm going to be talking about during that episode, it'll give you a brief synopsis. I try to put in some nice little art on it. It's like, it's where I get to play with AI because I'm not an artist, but I think the art's actually getting better, and I try to keep it in Art Deco and Art Nouveau style instead of just saying, hey, Give me a guy who's really sad about Bitcoin price. Just saying. From Hormuz Schmooze, yesterday's episode of Bitcoin and no waste BTC signs with 5,000 sats, but he says nothing. He doesn't give me a message. Wait a minute, hold on. INPC with 3,333 sats. Ooh, yeah, the magic number. Says, get well soon, fella. I thank you, man. I appreciate that. Jay with 2,100 sats. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. Jub with 1,123 sats says, feel better. Thank you. I appreciate that, friend. Kaz Peelan with 1,021 sats says, hero. Mutum 8 with 1,001 sat. Ooh, it's palindrome boost. Says, hi, David. Sorry you've been under the weather. Space Protocol, Space, hold on. Space, parentheses, S, parentheses, Protocol is a Bitcoin anchoring naming system designed to remove dependency on a central authority. Would love to tell you more about it and none your business at Bitcoin and see your DMs. Yeah, Mutum, I did get your DM. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get back to you yesterday. It's interesting. It's an interesting situation. I promise you I'm going to end up covering it. I just need to know more about it, and I haven't been able to dig in. Mutum, if you do me a big favor, if you can send me if you didn't, because I don't think you sent, I'm trying to figure out, is there anything that you've got a really technical detail or specification white paper or anything that describes in detail what's going on? I really, really, really want to read that too, because sometimes I think I know what's going on, but I actually don't know what's going on. And I'm not going to be so hubristic that I don't ask for assistance in understanding what's in your mind. Nick Dose with 229 sats says, cheers. And Noster Gang with a short row of sticks says, feel better. Thank you all for the well-wishing. Thank you all for the sats. I really do appreciate it because it's the donations that drives this show forward. At one point or another, I do want sponsors, but not in the way where it's just like, oh, I want to sponsor. I want to be like everybody else. I want to sponsor too. No, I want to be able to build something with that sponsor. I want a sponsor that actually works with me on building a show that they can be proud of too. Yeah, I'm sure that there's some people out there that remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. That guy, Marlon Perkins was his name. He was sent to Africa, to study elephants, and they would record them. They, film the adventure and all that stuff. And that's what he did. That was his job. His entire life was that show, right? And Mutual of Omaha foot the bill for not only the production cost of filming and producing the actual show that was aired, and I can't remember what channel it was on, but they're the ones that put him up in the hotel. They bought the plane tickets. They paid all of his staff, all that kind of. And I know that was a huge production back in the 1970s. Yeah, I'm not looking for that. That's not why I would want a sponsor, exactly for something of that scale. But there's some really cool shit that could be done at small scale and not even flying outside of the United States. So one of these days, if I do get a sponsor, please don't say, oh, look, he's sold out. I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be because I'm trying to figure out a way to develop a product that ties together Bitcoin, macroeconomics, our food system, what architecture we look at, where we've been, where we're going, who the hell are we? Because most of the people that are Bitcoiners, most of you guys that listen to this show, most of the Bitcoin shows that I listen to, there's more to it than just Bitcoin. And the reason that works is because money touches everything and everybody. Bitcoin is a better money, not an investment vehicle, not a yield product. It's just money. You can turn it into whatever the hell you want, but at the base level, it's just money. And because money touches everything, Bitcoin has the potential to replace that and can touch everything itself with something that makes more sense, with something that has less noise. If you're out there and you're either working for a Bitcoin company that is interested in picking up the Bitcoin and as a sponsorship, and you want to build something, not just have your advertisement read live over the air, actually build something, then tell your bosses or somebody that you know that might know one of those bosses and say, why don't you at least pick up the phone and give this guy a call? Just saying. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. And I'm carving out this area right here at the front of the second part of the show just for my friend Jay, because Jay did exactly what I asked him to do and sent me directly the Noster note that was his full boost that I was unable to complete reading yesterday. And here it is. Finally caught up again. Long boost, so you may need to find it on Noster. I'll be frank with you. Yours is the only Bitcoin podcast I listen to anymore. And it is because I think you are principled and honorable, and your dedication to this show is admirable. Thank you, truly, for your time and effort. As for Mike selling Bitcoin to inoculate the market, I think it's reasonable. At their size and complexity, having the option to sell Bitcoin when they need to without causing the market to melt down is probably valuable to them. So selling a pittance now gets the shock out of the way, and we can expect more in the future. Being humble before God is a subtle topic. There's no real way to express it in words. Being humble towards others is a start. Being humble towards yourself is, in my opinion, even better. Now it's that last part that really makes me think. It really does. You hear about you need to forgive yourself. You hear that a lot. You know, all the bullshit that you've committed in the past, and you've committed bullshit and you know it. You know how I know it? You're a human being. Because as far as I know, elk and tortoise and deer and raccoons do not listen to this show. That means who I'm talking to right now is a human. And you've probably committed some either really stupid shit that resulted in some fairly serious hurt feelings that lasted for a long time, or you've done shit on purpose that you knew you were about to do, and you knew it was wrong, and you did it fucking anyway. All humans are like this. Even me. You think I'm fucking perfect? Yeah. Get a ticket to being wrong. Guarantee you. So we talk about forgiveness, forgiving others. Jesus told us that. Yeah, you got to forgive others, man. Love each other as I have loved you is the final commandment. And in many people's estimation, it overrides the 10 commandments. I don't know. I'm not a theologian, so I'm not going to pontificate on it. But love each other as I have loved you, which basically means give your life for each other. Okay. That's a big ask. And forgiving each other. Why would you forgive somebody who did something like, I don't know, kill your wife? Why would Jesus ask for you to forgive that person? Is it for that person? No, I don't think so. Is it for Jesus? An argument could be made for that, but I don't think that that's it. My gut feeling is that it's for you. So that you can unburden yourself from carrying that hate around. Those negative feelings just going to kill you. You eat at you, make you not as good as you could be. I think that that's why. But when Jay said being humble towards yourself is, in my opinion, even better than being humble towards others, I'm still kind of like, Well, shit, I thought I was confused as to how to humble myself before God. I kind of know how to humble myself before others. But how in the fuck do you humble yourself to yourself? Jay, if you've got any thoughts on clarification on that, and I'm not asking for an instruction manual, I'm just saying I don't even know how to think about that. I'm a pretty smart guy, and it's not that I'm confused, it's just that, and it's not that it's necessarily over my head, but it's like, it's difficult to conceive. It's almost more difficult to conceive than how do you humble yourself before God, because at least I got one piece of that puzzle pulled out. I think it's an important subject, especially for these times that we find ourselves in, because nobody knows nothing and everything's fake and gay. I mean, I don't mean to make light of what Jay just said. I'm just saying we got to transition over to this one. SpaceX IPO nears 4 times oversubscribed. Oh my God, it's squeezing crypto and technology. Cointelegraph's Martin Young tells us something about this entire mess. The initial public offering of SpaceX has reportedly seen an oversubscription rate running at almost 4x the planned offering size, with some analysts suggesting it could be squeezing liquidity from the market. Joe, you think? You think? No. Color me shocked. SpaceX's IPO has attracted over $250 billion in investor demand, far exceeding the $75 billion it was seeking to raise in what would be the largest public offering ever, with the firm valued at $1.8 trillion, according to Reuters. Now, I need to pause. If I remember correctly, the raise of just $75 billion was going to put the value of SpaceX at $1.8 trillion. If I'm wrong about that, I need correction, because I'm not going to go look for it, because I'm kind of like over this whole thing is like one of the grandest hype cycles I've ever seen. I'm not saying that SpaceX doesn't have any value. I'm saying we've been watching the markets together, you and I, and we've seen what's been going on the last few weeks. We know that this money has been flowing into equities and into cash, specifically for these 3 IPOs that are about to start, with the SpaceX one. And that's this Friday, if I remember right. But now even equities, what was stacked into equities over the last couple of weeks, as we saw it just skyrocket, is now not only in extreme volatility, but in extreme volatility trending down. That's not going to last. That's why I'm saying this is all kind of short term. But this hype cycle, holy shit. Man, I don't even remember seeing this kind of thing, remembering this kind of hype cycle during the internet boom before that bubble burst. I don't know, man. Be careful out there, folks. Meanwhile, bankers and investors say it is the latest sign that demand is strong, as long-only funds have put in sizable orders, according to the sources. Pricing is expected on Thursday, though demand figures can still shift before then, as some large institutional investors tend to submit orders late in the process. The IPO comes at a time of extreme volatility in the markets, with tech stocks tumbling and crypto markets shedding more than $180 billion over the past week. Some analysts speculated that the market retreat could be partially driven by selling to raise funds for the SpaceX IPO. Quote, I'm seeing this exactly as the classic pre-mega IPO liquidity squeeze playing out in real time, says BitTrue Research Institute research lead Andre Falzon-Adzima. Quote, the tanking in the crypto and tech stocks right now isn't random. It's the direct, quote, IPO tax from SpaceX's record-breaking deal, with pricing tomorrow and trading Friday at $135 a share for a $1.8 trillion valuation. Quote, oversubscription with massive orders confirms the hype, But that excitement is sucking liquidity out of correlated risk assets today, hitting crypto hardest because it's the most retail driven and sentiment tied to growth/tech narratives, end quote. This isn't the start of a broader bear market. It's a temporary rotation, he said. SpaceX's growth story is largely tied to its satellite internet business, Starlink, which has become a major source of revenue and profitability. The firm is also touted a $23 trillion market opportunity it claims is ahead for its artificial intelligence offering. Crypto exchanges have been quick to capitalize on the IPO hype, with Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, and Bybit launching pre-IPO perpetual futures for SpaceX this month. Xunyet Zhan, head of spot and derivatives at Binance, told Cointelegraph that the strong early traction for Binance's pre-IPO perpetual futures reflects growing user interest in gaining regulated style market exposure to high-profile private companies through this native product. Since launch, the products have generated $2.1 billion in cumulative trading volume in just 18 days on Binance alone, with participation spanning more than 130 countries. Meanwhile, decentralized exchange Hyperliquid has seen $70 million in trading volume over the past 24 hours, with the current price for its synthetic SpaceX pre-IPO perpetuals priced at $157, and that's down from $210 when the derivatives first launched, according to Hyperdash. This indicates strong demand, with open interest exceeding $115 million on Hyperliquid alone, and a current prediction of a $1.97 trillion SpaceX valuation. Okay, that's the end of that. What do you guys think about this whole SpaceX thing? Because after this, we got OpenAI and Anthropic. I don't know which comes first. I think OpenAI comes first, and then there's Anthropic. And this is all after this Friday's SpaceX launch. I mean, I'm pretty sure that this is what's driving the Bitcoin price and a whole bunch of other stuff that I mentioned earlier. But I wonder about this. Think about the scenario. Got a whole bunch of liquidity sucked out of the markets, both out of crypto at large, I think Bitcoin mostly, and also equities, which kind of dwarf the amount of money we're talking about when we look at the amount of liquidity that left Bitcoin. All of it's being held in cash, and I think all of it is going to be funneled into this IPO of SpaceX. It's very possible that after $135 release price, when it actually opens for trading, that it's probably going to plummet, and then it's going to start rising back up. And after maybe, let's say, a week of trading, the first week of open trading, which would be like they'll come to a close on Friday, and then Monday or Sunday evening or whatever, or actually, I guess Monday morning at 6:30 Eastern or whenever it is, 9:30 or 10 Eastern, whenever the market's open over there, that during that week it's going to come back up and it's going to surpass its price, because people are going to go, oh shit, I can get in lower, on Monday morning after a brutal sell off on Friday. Then they start selling after maybe week 2 or week 3 of gains. And that way they're back into a liquid position to wait on what? The OpenAI IPO. And then that one does basically cycles, maybe not as much volatility as SpaceX might, but also starts to climb. So they wouldn't take all their money out of the SpaceX IPO. Maybe they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll take $100 million and we're going to shove it into the IPO of SpaceX. Then we're going to wait for it to go up to some price that they determine is their strike price, to which they sell part of their position. And they sell 2/3 of that position. And then they put the 2/3 of that position into the OpenAI IPO. Rinse and repeat. get that one up, hit a strike price that makes sense to them, sell 2/3 of that position, and go and take the rest of it and put it into the Anthropic IPO, and just maybe even do the same thing there. Pull out of that, and then we're kind of free and clear of this major AI IPO landscape that we find ourselves in, and we'll find ourselves in. I don't know when Anthropic and OpenAI is supposed to do it, but after Anthropic, if they're the last ones, then we're kind of free and clear, and we can clear the dust, clear the cobwebs, get our feet on the ground, but we're going to have to go through all this shit first. So just be prepared for a very, very weird and wild ride. What I do hope is that they take their profits on SpaceX IPO, and those are the only profits that they take. And that the liquidity out of other equities that are not SpaceX remains intact, and some of it starts flowing back to Bitcoin. That's what I hope. I don't know if it'll happen, but that's my best guess. Michael Saylor gets into a public spat over claims that Strategy's latest share sale was dilutive. James Van Straten out of CoinDesk. Tempers are flaring as the Bitcoin price flashes bear market signals. Strategy's latest Bitcoin purchase has sparked a public debate on X between Chairman Michael Saylor and Bitcoin advocate Matthew Krater, I don't know how to pronounce it, over whether the company's most recent capital raise was accretive or dilutive for shareholders. The disagreement centers on Strategy's own Bitcoin performance metric called BTC Yield, which is designed to track changes in Bitcoin holdings per assumed diluted share. According to Strategy's latest figure, BTC Yield fell from 13% on June the 1st to 12.8% on June the 8th, after the company acquired an additional 1,550 Bitcoin. Krater argued that the decline shows the transaction was dilutive on a Bitcoin per share basis. Over the same period, Strategy's Bitcoin holdings rose from a lot of Bitcoin to some more Bitcoin, while assumed diluted shares outstanding increased from 382.75 million to 384.18 million. BTC gain year to date also fell from 85,754 Bitcoin to 86,328. Well, Saylor pushed back, saying BTC Yield is a narrow KPI that measures only Bitcoin per share, not total shareholder accretion. Saylor said the transaction also added approximately $100 million in reserves, taking the total USD reserve to $1 billion, making the deal accretive when both Bitcoin and cash are included. If viewed strictly through BTC Yield, the latest raise appears dilutive. But if cash reserves and broader balance sheet effects are included, Saylor argues that the transaction improved shareholder value. And then others jumped in. Quote, "Notice they keep changing the rules to fit the financial alchemy they're doing," sniped Woz. Quote, "First, BTC Yield was boasted everywhere and plastered across every buy announcement as the standard accretive metric. Now it's a narrow KPI, which is irrelevant. Quote, as a short seller, I've watched innumerable companies move the goalpost and try to focus the market on new metrics when old ones aren't showing the story that they want them to anymore. Sometimes companies outright delete KPIs and use new ones." What do you think? Here's what I think. Welcome to the markets, motherfucker. What do you think? I'm not defending Saylor, but do you think that this company is the only institution to change a key performance indicator? A KPI? Dude, all you got to do is look at the United States federal government's numbers of the CPI. Do you know how many times we've changed the basket of goods and services that are in the CPI to reflect closer to the Fed's mandate of 2% inflation per year? The CPI in the late 1970s looks nothing at all like it does today. The goods and services that were included in the late 70s CPI, there was a lot of stuff in there that's been, taken out. And we know it's not theory. It's not tinfoil hattery. We know they've taken it out. They told us they did. Nobody seemed to bitch. Everybody seemed to be okay with it. And again, I'm not defending Saylor. I kind of think that Woz and Quoth the Raven, with the other guy that I read his quote from, I think they're kind of right. I think they're right to at least put pressure on Saylor and say, look, dude, you were saying the Bitcoin yield was the only metric that mattered, and now you're saying, oh, well, Bitcoin and cash. Well, that means you're kind of diluting the idea of BTC yield. Because, quote, the Raven's kind of right. Or rather, Woz is kind of right. He says, now it's a narrow KPI, which is irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? Because Bitcoin yield as a KPI has no place for cash. It's not a Bitcoin plus cash yield KPI. It is a Bitcoin yield KPI. These gentlemen are both right. Well, if they are gentlemen, I mean, who knows who? I don't know if Woz is a guy. Doesn't matter. It's okay to get on Saylor's back about this shit. You know, it's like if you don't receive communication from the public, it doesn't matter that Saylor's arguing and maybe he's miffed that he's being called out. Who cares? He's a fucking grown man. He doesn't wear diapers. It's okay for people to crawl all up and down Saylor's ass. Like it was that movie I, Robot with Will Smith. When he like chases down some broad's robot and tackles his ass. And she looks at him and says, if I didn't have asthma, I'd be walking all up and down your ass for that. I thought that was the funniest damn line in a movie I'd seen or heard in a long time. But it's the same shit here. Saylor's trying to deliver a line that's full of shit. He completely needs to be called out on it. And it's okay. It's not going to make everything die. Kalshi, switching gears here. Kalshi rolls out new safeguards after insider trading concerns hit prediction markets. Oh, new concerns? Tell me more, Vismaya V out of decrypt.co. Prediction market operator Kalshi is rolling out new compliance measures aimed at addressing mounting concerns over insider trading, the exchange said on Tuesday. The latest defense in a sector battling mounting insider trading concerns. Yeah, that's never going away, dude, no matter what you do. The new requirement applies to market deemed at higher risk for insider trading or market manipulation, Kalshi said in a blog post. The disclosure rule kicks in only for markets the exchange flags as carrying an elevated risk of insider trading or manipulation, such as contracts pegged to corporate performance, national security, major geopolitical flashpoints, etc., such as the Iran war. Traders who hit that threshold should fill out an online form with their employment details. Oh, that actually is going to put a little bit of a kibosh on this. Kalshi said it won't check the information unless an investigation is already underway, though it may bar some users from individual contracts depending on where they work. Wait, well, how do you know where they work if you don't check the information on the form? You see, this is all bullshit. Well, it's not bullshit, it's just doublespeak. Alongside the disclosure requirement, they announced a risk scoring framework designed to identify markets with elevated insider trading risk. When a market is proposed for listing, it runs through a system weighing 6 factors, including corporate KPI or event risk, outcome concentration risk, market importance, regulatory risk, non-traditional insider trading risk, and national security risk. A lot of risk. Less important markets carrying high insider or manipulation risk may be rejected from listing entirely. The framework also assesses whether markets pose potential national security concerns. Quote, by running an assessment on the national security risk a market might present before we list it, we can better prevent dangerous events from having a negative effect on our markets or vice versa, Robert Denault, head of enforcement at Kalshi, wrote in a statement. How the fuck are you supposed to assess national security risk unless you have clearance? Who do you think you are? You're a market maker. You don't know. I mean, yeah, you can make an assumption that this might have something to do with national security, but you don't really know, do you? I mean, there literally could be a market that's so obscure that does affect or could affect national security, but you miss it because you're looking for stuff like Iran war, Iraq invasion, like a spy list has been released to the Kremlin or some shit like that. Yeah, that seems obvious, but what about, how are you going to catch the non-obvious? Because if you think that everything in national security across the globe is overt, you're wrong. There's a lot of nuanced shit. Like, I don't know, like what ex-FBI director so-and-so says on a podcast. And it's like, I don't know, what sports team he likes. What kind of information could that give? I know I'm reaching here, but I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure that national security is a very large basket. And somebody from Kalshi is not going to be able to figure that shit out. The major stuff, yeah, you might be able to clear 80% of the risk. But with the risk list that you just put on here, good luck, buddy. Good luck. I call bullshit. Other measures include expanded whistleblower tools that let users report suspicious activity directly to the company's surveillance team. The Independent Surveillance Audit Committee, appointed to oversee the integrity and enforcement program, will continue delivering quarterly reports. I don't give a shit. Kalshi confirmed Tuesday that it had opened up more than 150 investigations this year and blocked more than 100 potential insider trades using these screening tools, and also referred more than 20 cases to law enforcement. The platform fined and suspended 3 political candidates just this year for trading on their own elections, a conduct it described as political insider trading. Amid all of this, buoyed by more than $1 billion in perpetual futures volume within 1 week of launch, according to data shared with CNBC, Kalshi's wasted little time widening its reach, filing to self-certify contracts tied to 12 major altcoins, including, and then they name shitcoins. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the national. We're going to protect national security. Even though none of us have clearance, we don't have any direct connections to the CIA, or do we? There's always that question. It's the landscape is replete with fog of war, and I'm not just talking about Iran. I think Alex Jones was right when he named InfoWars what he did. We're in an information war. Have you noticed, like, there's barely any news coming out of Iran? I'm talking credible news. The shock news, yeah, sure. Yeah, you can find headlines on that. But honestly, even that seems to be a little bit thin. But real news as to what's going on and who's talking to who, I'm sorry. This is an informational black hole. And it's not just about Iran, like I said. Does Kalshi have connections with the intelligence community in a way that would make sense for what their guy was saying, how they're going to protect national security? Do they have an NSA advisor? Some kind of staff? We have to ask these questions. These are statements that when made, make my ears and the hackles on the back of my fucking neck stand up. How the fuck are you supposed to protect national security? You're a goddamn trading market. Let's be real. We're not children. This shit matters. Shit makes me mad. I'm sorry, it does. And then we got the fucking CFTC unveiling a sweeping rule proposal for fast-growing prediction markets. Sarah Wynn out of the block. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission proposed new rules for burgeoning prediction markets that delineate what bets would be allowed under federal law. Oh, well, at least these guys are, at least they got a phone that will be picked up, by the CIA or the NSA or whatever. On Wednesday, the CFTC introduced a slate of new rules that would still allow overall support for sports betting despite opposition from state regulators. However, bets on terrorism, assassinations, and war would be more limited. Okay. So I can make a limited bet on assassinate, or I can make a bet on some assassinations, not others. Some wars, some terrorism. Prediction markets such as Kalshi and Polymarket allow people to place bets on real-world events. I know, we get it. Quote, the CFTC will protect the integrity of our regulated markets without standing in the way of responsible innovation. This proposal gives the Commission a durable, transparent framework to identify the contracts Congress directed us to scrutinize while letting legitimate markets move forward, said CFTC Chair Michael Selig. Lawmakers have introduced several bipartisan bills to restrict trades by people with access to non-public information to prevent insider trading. Still, these bills have yet to be passed into law. Prediction markets have also said that they introduced safeguards, as we just noticed. This week, Kalshi rolled out mandatory employment verification for traders in sensitive markets, among other measures to combat insider trading. The new rule from the CFTC takes a different approach than in years past. Under the Biden administration, the CFTC voted to propose rules restricting event contracts tied to gaming, war, terrorism, and assassination because they could be contrary to the public interest. That rulemaking was scrapped earlier this year. But in this new 267-page proposed rule, the CFTC seeks to discern between what could be considered terrorism-related bets, citing an example where betting on whether the Islamic State conducts an armed attack causing more than 10 civilian deaths in Baghdad during June of 2026 involves terrorism. Hold on for a sec. Discern between what could be considered terrorism-related bets. Okay. However, a bet on whether the Transportation Security Administration implements better screening at certain airports would not involve terrorism, according to the proposed rule. As for sports betting, the CFTC said that those contracts are not likely to raise public interest concerns. Quote, the Commission observes that prediction markets have successfully listed for trading a wide variety of event contracts based on sports. The Commission preliminarily finds that certain characteristics of event contracts involving sports activities would reduce the basis for finding that the event contracts are contrary to the public interest. Okay. That's honestly, that is all we need from this right now. There's a couple of things that kind of lit me up. I think the CFTC is going to take control of gambling across the United States. I think at this point, using the supremacy clause by stating that event and sports betting contracts are derivatives and therefore under the sole purview of the CFTC, which is a federal department or institution, if you will, that they're going to take those rights away from each individual state, which means that they could literally allow gambling in all 50 states, which would not surprise me one freaking bit. Lotteries haven't drained enough money out of the public. We need to milk them even more. Let's give Oklahoma the ability to bet on anything they want, not just parimutuel betting. And I'm not sure if that actually happens in Oklahoma. I know that there's horse racing in New Mexico, and I think it's parimutuel. But screw it all. Let's just do Vegas-style betting on everything in all 50 states. Because who can stop us? The states can't stop this. Even the 10th Amendment seems to be scuttled because of the supremacy clause of the Constitution of the United States. Because at that point, see, that's the thing. The 10th Amendment basically says this. If it's not mentioned specifically in the body of the Constitution of the United States, then and only then can it be considered as the purview of each individual state. That's the 10th Amendment in a nutshell. Except there's this supremacy clause. And if you claim supremacy as an institution in the federal government, it seems that you will be able to circumvent the 9th, 10th, and 11th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States. And that's what I kind of see happening. We don't need more gambling. We need more building of things. We need more people being able to find their own way without a 401k, without health insurance provided by your employer. And I'm not saying give it up. I'm saying there's got to be some kind of fucking replacement for this shit. There is more medical insurance crap posts that I've been seeing over the past, year of people that have full health insurance from good employers, and they still owe $5,000 for a baby being born. Are you fucking kidding me? You know what that is? That's the same shit. That's what has done to healthcare as what student loans did to higher education. All this, it's a subsidy. That's all it is. It's just a government subsidy. And why would it be government subsidy on a private health insurance that is a third-party vendor to something like, Michael Saylor's strategy? Because I guarantee you there's government shit underlying it. And it just, student loans, almost anybody, if they wanted to, if they could get in to college, could get a college education. It was not that expensive. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely not impossible. If you had the will and you were also willing to work, you could get a college education for fairly cheap. You traded your time for it, but if you picked the right major at the right time, you got paid well for it. And it worked for a long time. And then came student loans. And universities started doing what? Silently, quietly, slowly dropping the requirements needed to get into their institution. Why? The more warm asses in seats meant the more student loans would be procured by these new people. Sounds like a Ponzi. Well, health insurance done the same thing to health insurance. 401ks guarantee nothing but up and to the right equity markets. Because that's what they're going to buy. That, like your 401k is buying SpaceX IPO. Your 40, just be excited about it now, but you also take the hit. Because eventually, this shit doesn't last. I'm not calling for depression. I don't know the date, but at one point or another, every bubble's got to go. And everybody's got to get back to basics. So why can't we just start now? How to build, how to get out from under the desk job, be able to operate without health insurance. And I don't mean that as like being dumb. I mean like alternatives like Crowd Health. Crowd Health is out there. You should go check them out at least. And I suspect that their model is going to grow. And other people are going to say, hey, this is a good model. Let's make one of our own. Because eventually, I think the health insurance, the way it's running right now, I think it's going to go away. Because it's not working. When you pay as much as people pay for their health insurance and still have a $10,000 deductible before the health insurance kicks in, I don't even know what that is. That doesn't even sound like a product. That sounds more like a shakedown. And now you've got people like Crowd Health. I'm telling you, go check out Crowd Health. I interviewed the CEO. I can't remember. Wait a minute. You know what? I can tell you. If you're interested, I will tell you what episode that is, but you will have to give me some time because I need to look at Crowd Health. I can't spell. There we go. Let's see. I want to make sure that this is it. Crowd Health members. Yep. Crowd Health's Andy Schoonover was episode 1076. 1076. We talked about the evolution of health insurance in the United States. We talk about the Crowd Health model, like how it works, like stuff like negotiation of medical bills, and of course, Bitcoin integration because they're a Bitcoin company. You know, they're not completely Bitcoin. They're at least they got their heads about them. They're a health insurance company. They utilize Bitcoin. You can pay for your services in Bitcoin. There's a health savings account in Bitcoin. There's all kinds of stuff. But just go listen. We've been so drummed into thinking the only way you get ahead is X, Y, and Z. What if X, Y, and Z is wrong? Is there another way? I mean, was it not possible to live past 20 when in 1911? Was it really that miserable? Are we sure? I know people tell us that, but were you there? Do you know? See, these are the questions that I'm starting to ask all the time now. And it's not because I'm a tinfoil hatter, although I have been known to be one. I'm just saying there's got to be a different way. And we need to start looking for it now. We've already got step 1 and step 2 complete. Decentralized money in Bitcoin and decentralized communications and stuff like Nostr. And I know everybody's, Nostr's died. Nostr died. It's too bad. Even people that love Nostr are saying, oh, Nostr died. Yeah, okay, fine, pal. You go on and believe whatever you want to believe. But we've got the first 2 steps. Transmission of value anonymously or pseudo-anonymously. Transmission of information, which is could also be money. I'm just saying that people have started and given us real tools. And we keep falling back into the same hole. Markets, derivatives, volume trading, noise. What's the value? I don't give a shit as long as it's up and to the right. How much time are you spending with your family? Is that up and to the right? Have you texted your wife or your husband today while they're at work? Said, I love you? Is that up and to the right? Have you asked one of your listeners to please explain how to humble yourself before God? Or how to humble yourself before yourself? Is that up and to the right? There's an entirely different way to live, and it doesn't mean abject poverty. I just don't know what it looks like. I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.